Lincoln, Senior Vice President of Achieving the Dream, introducing you today to our webinar on ATD 101, information that you would need if you are in college that's interested in learning more about becoming a member of the Achieving the Dream National Reform Network. I'm joined today by two colleagues from the Central Office of Achieving the Dream, Lori Haycock, who is Vice President of Data, Technology, and Analytics, and Ashley McDonald, who's the Assistant Director of Network Recruitment and Retention. We are especially pleased that today our colleague, Dr. Joy Gates Black, is joining us. Joy has been working with us from Tarrant County Community College for a long time, and she's now on the verge of becoming the new president at Delaware County Community College, which is also another Achieving the Dream institution. Joy is going to be sharing some of her experiences with Achieving the Dream at Tarrant County College District. And so it'll be a very a good conversation about the real world of working on the Achieving the Dream reform efforts. We're going to spend a little bit of time today reflecting just briefly on where Achieving the Dream, what our history is, and our evolution. Once we've talked a little bit about that, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the benefits that colleges have realized from being part of the national network. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we do as an organization, a little bit about how you would get connected, how you would apply to become involved, how you would start your participation. And then, of course, Joy is going to share some of what she's seen firsthand from working on these efforts at her college. So I'll begin with just a brief memory trip here. We are now 13 years old. It's hard to believe, but we were started as a national demonstration that was funded by the Lumina Foundation. They brought together 7 national intermediary organizations and challenged us to come up with a design and then to implement that design, something that would help colleges realize better outcomes for their students. The foundation in 2003 and 4 was really upset by the numbers they were seeing of how many students were relying on using community colleges as the portal to higher education, and yet they were not completing credentials. So they asked these organizations to tackle that. We started working with colleges as pilot sites, and after about 5 or 6 years, we had enough evidence that this was important work to do and work that colleges were committed to doing, sufficient evidence to enable us to reach the decision that we should create an independent nonprofit organization, which you now would know as Achieving the Dream Incorporated. And that organization was going to dedicate its full time, its full support and resources to supporting colleges who were working hard on trying to improve outcomes for their students. The experience that we've had up to this point has helped us touch over 200 colleges across 35 states and the District of Columbia. And we're probably best known for the major accomplishment of changing the conversation from where it was back in 2003 and 4, where we certainly had tremendous value for creating access to higher education and expanding that access. We weren't paying as much attention at that time to the ultimate goal of students coming to higher ed, which was to get the credentials that would help them achieve jobs and a happy lifestyle. We changed that conversation to include both access and success as priority items for colleges. And now today you'll find that we're looking back at over 13 years worth of experience to leverage what we've learned and to help in different ways and better ways to support colleges as they try to accelerate student progress. In a nutshell, if I had to write a headline for these early years experience, I would say that what we really did, what we really learned, is that if you're going to improve student success on a substantial scale, you've really got to be very bold. You've got to consider holistic solutions to what you're doing. In the early years, what many of us at the colleges were doing is we were hoping that independent interventions that were targeted to a few or a small segment of the college would actually help accelerate the completion rates. We thought by focusing on DevEd examples, for example, we would be able to help students be prepared for their regular college courses and move forward. And what we've learned is that you can't just attack one part of the student experience. You can't do just one intervention. You can't target just a couple of subsets of students. You really need to be thinking about the whole college experience, and you need to be thinking about how you can come up with scalable solutions that are going to impact large numbers of the students. When we reflected back on our history, we did tweak a bit our vision and our mission statements, but essentially it's right where we began. Our vision is still that we're going to have a nation with community colleges that put tremendous emphasis on preserving the access to higher ed while also looking hard at the outcome of credentials that matter. And they're going to particularly look at what is good for low-income students and students of color, so we make sure that they're achieving their goals as well as some of the more advantaged counterparts. Our mission is to continue to lead and support that national network. We do all we can to help you learn about and implement effective strategies and approaches. We share the research from the field. We try to push out as quickly as possible solutions that you can implement. Our work then as an ATD national organization really boils down to these three major buckets of activities. We help bring various supports that have been designed to help colleges reach scaled solutions so that they are accelerating student success. As you define it in many, many different ways. It could be through speeding students through developmental education onto 4-credit courses and attaining a certificate. It could be attaining a degree. It could be getting a job in the workforce. But we essentially are helping colleges with these research-based strategies for improving outcomes for students. We also like to work on incubating new ideas. So in many ways, we work with subsets of colleges that are interested in testing new cutting-edge strategies that haven't yet been proven to be successful, but they need the time for implementation and research for that to happen. So we have a number of projects going on where we're working with maybe 5 colleges, sometimes it's 40 or 50, on a particular new strategy that once they prove whether or not it's effective, we have the ability to spread knowledge of that to the rest of our network and indeed to the whole field of higher education. So that third bullet is really about that piece of the work, disseminating knowledge back to the field of what we've learned worked, sometimes through our incubation work and sometimes through the research of other organizations nationally. The next slide is a map of our footprint. We have over 200 colleges that we've worked with. The ones that are in gold are what we call leader colleges. These are colleges that have been with us for a while, and they've distinguished themselves by being able to show that on at least one, maybe 2 or more outcomes for students, various metrics, they can show that they've had an upward trend in those student outcomes for at least 3 years. There's roughly 100 of our colleges that have reached leader college status. Each year we do a survey of our colleges. We ask them to reflect on their experience, and we ask them to reflect on the supports that we're providing to see if we are doing the job that we really are committed to doing. When we look at the results of the survey, what we find is that the colleges are very frequently reporting to us that one of the biggest changes they've observed since being in Achieving the Dream is the increased use of data. It's helped them focus on student success. It's made it possible for them to think about new policies to put in place that are going to help students be more successful. It's helped close achievement gaps, and they've been able to see some improvement in their student outcomes. I want to share quickly with you just a couple of brief stories about what some of the colleges have been able to do during their time in Achieving the Dream. On the screen you'll see a few of them. Bakersfield, for example, they wanted to tackle developmental education. You can see here that within a 2-year period of time, they were able to improve their outcomes in English as well as math by about 5 percentage points in just 2 years' time of real intensive effort on that work. At Trident Technical College, after many years of not seeing the needle move, they came up with an idea that they needed to shorten the fall term. The courses would be 7 weeks instead of longer. They found dramatic improvement instantaneously. Their persistence and course completion rates went from 62% to 76% in just a short period of time. At Harper in Illinois, for example, they were looking particularly at the number of certificate and degree students that would be graduating from their institution. They had a tremendous uptick in that over time, and at the same time they were also working on improving relations with the K through 12 systems and found that they were able through various strategies to bring more students into college ready for college level math, far more than they had ever been able to do before they started working intensively with their high school colleagues. Durham Tech is another example. Durham Tech was working on fall to spring persistence. They found that they were able to not only increase the percentage of students that returned in the spring from 64 to 71%, but they also closed the gap from what they had observed before between some of their students and the African American students. So it was virtually the same persistence rate for those groups after several years of working on that issue. And then finally, another example from the University of Hawaii, where they were able to increase the number of degrees that they awarded by 70% over a 4-year period of time through a variety of strategies that they use to keep students in school. If you're interested in hearing some more of these success stories, on our web we have something called the Leah Meyer Austin Award section, and each year we give an award to a college that has distinguished itself for improving student outcomes. I encourage you to go there and take a look for more stories of how colleges have benefited from their Achieve the Dream experience. With that, I'd like to turn this webinar over to Lori Haycock, who's going to talk more specifically about what we do when we work with colleges. So Lori, you want to take it away?
Sure. Thank you so much, Carol. So Achieving the Dream has announced introduced a new national model for institutional change that really emerged from lessons from the field and the research that we've gathered over our first 12 years. This model has at its core the 7 essential capacities that must be in place for colleges to embark on large-scale change work like that required in guided pathways or advising reform and DevEd reform. It builds on the 5 principles of the past, but it's different in some intentional ways. We have a new increased focus on teaching and learning, which of course is at the heart of the community college mission. We realize that data is so important, but so is technology infrastructure and the ability to create that technology ecosystem to support students throughout the pathways. And next slide, please. We've also embedded the culture of evidence, which has been a key principle throughout each of the 7 capacity areas. So what are the key strategic questions that we should be asking to inform decision-making related to equity, related to leadership and vision, to our policies and practices, etc. Next slide, please. So the strengths of the framework are that it helps the colleges really take a holistic approach to capacity building, and at the center is that student-focused culture. It elevates the value of capacity building to move beyond just an intervention-only focus, and it assists colleges in gauging where you are, assessing your current capacity, celebrating those successes and strengths, identifying areas that you need to bolster, and then informing action based on that. We found that colleges, what's really resonated with colleges is that it helps align and provide cohesion to the work that's already underway in terms of interventions and your Title III grants and all of your student success initiatives. It gives you something to anchor that to, and it allows us to provide more tailored coaching services and supports to kind of bring that equity agenda to our colleges, meeting you where your needs are in terms of your capacity building. Next slide, please. A companion to the institutional capacity framework is the institutional capacity assessment tool. This is an online self-assessment that a college takes and engages a broad range of stakeholders: academic affairs, student services, your adjunct faculty, your full-time faculty, your board if you want, IT, IR, to do like a 360 perspective on where folks think that your capacity is. And it's a 4-point scale from minimal to exemplary, with that exemplary being that aspirational level. And then engaging that broad group of stakeholders into a capacity cafe, which is like a World Cafe large group engagement activity, to share those diversity of perspectives, see where there's alignment, see where there might be some perception gaps, but together, collectively, move into action planning to take the results from that tool and move from insight to action. We also lead colleges through how to lead change on your campus. And so part of that is setting the stage and preparing for desired change, taking a candid look at the way you do business, and intentionally by design, and maybe unfreezing some of the habits that are there and positioning yourself to move. We help you build those cross-functional, cross-hierarchical core and data teams to help guide your student success work and develop a compelling student success vision and strategy that you can communicate for buy-in. We have coaches that, work with you on navigating this process, and engagement is so important. Again, we want this student success to be everybody's job. If you're not in the classroom, then your job on campus is ensure that students arrive in class in the best condition to learn. And that really involves broad engagement, not just within the college community, but with your K through 12, other K through 16 partners, and your employers and community-based organizations. So looking at that whole pathway. And then, and this is one thing I think that we typically don't do, but celebrating those short-term wins and those successes to help build momentum and engagement in the student success work. And really sustaining that laser focus on student success as the next North Star, and aligning all of the work that you do under that to lead this institutional change. And then, evaluation is so important throughout the process. Like, what's working, let's stop what's not working. Let's keep doing more of what is working, and sharing those lessons to inform the work moving ahead. So there's an African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think when you join Achieving the Dream, you really do leverage the power of going together through the network and the peer learning and the coaching that you get, and resources through Achieving the Dream. So some of the peer learning activities are like our Big Dream event, which is held every February. This year it will be held in San Francisco. We really encourage you to join us there. It's our hallmark premier event. We also have a National Teaching and Learning Institute in the summer. We have President's Symposia. We have a Data and Analytics Summit each September. This October, we'll be hosting our first IPASS Institute on advising reform. And we'll be, adding these type of institute experiences to round out DREAM and to align with those 7 essential capacities. We also have a series of webinars. We have one on data and technology. We have a Leader College webinar series for colleges that join. We have a first-year experience series. And we have ATD Connect, which is our learning management system. So there's a network, quote-unquote, course. Each college has a course, but it allows you to do engage in peer learning. We also have like an online data discovery guide. We have a variety of fee-for-service offerings colleges can opt in for, in addition to the traditional coaching visits if you want to take a deep dive on strategy execution or something more customized. And then we have a research agreement with the National Student Clearinghouse, and we have an MOU with the Voluntary Framework of Accountability, so we can help you with your student success reports and benchmarking through those agreements. So ATD can help your college really, I think, take action based on insights and move towards improving your student success goals and your student success outcomes. Through our holistic approach, we build capacity so that you can move confidently into doing pathways work, into DevEd reform, and those other large-scale reform movements. We help you leverage data to make better informed decisions, and again, to align and add cohesiveness to the great work that you're already doing so that you can scale that and serve even more students. We've mapped our institutional capacity framework and tool to all of the major accrediting agency standards, and going through this process is an excellent way to document and prepare for your accreditation visit and reaffirmation. We also engage everybody in the college community within the student success conversation so that within their sphere of influence, they can lead change and support student success. Equity is a key value of achieving the dream, and we also work with colleges to be really intentional about identifying any achievement gaps that exist and working to close those gaps. We know that this work takes courage and that they're an innovation, and so we also work with you to create safe spaces so that you can have those candid, courageous conversations and feel free to try things that may work and that may not work, and that's okay because we learn from them, and we all share what we're learning through our network experiences. Next slide, please. So now it's my pleasure to turn this over to Joy Gates-Black to share her experience at Tarrant County Community College as they've gone through achieving the dream and leverage this institutional capacity framework. So Dr. Gates, please share your story.
All right, thanks, Lori. I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity, go back to the first slide, please, to share a little about Tarrant's journey, how we approached our work with achieving the dream, some of the strategies that we implemented to help change the culture of our college, and some of the lessons that we learned along the way. Next slide. Several key changes took place at Tarrant in 2010. First, we hired a new chancellor who was very focused on student success. And shortly after she took office, the state released a report on the college's performance on several key performance areas, and completion and developmental education was one of those areas. In a ranking of the 10 large community colleges in Texas, Tarrant was ranked 8th. And after meeting with the faculty and staff on each campus, we discovered that in our efforts to support student choice, we had created unintentional barriers to student success. See, for many years, students had been mandated to take any required developmental education upon entering the college and to continue to take those courses until their developmental education requirement was complete. But once the law changed, colleges were given the option of continuing the requirement or allowing students to choose when they would complete developmental education. Tarrant made the decision to allow students to choose when they would complete the developmental education. And as you can imagine, students were choosing to put off completing their courses for as long as they could. This revelation led to other discoveries of inconsistencies across the campuses that were also creating barriers to students. The next thing that happened that year was the announcement of performance-based funding. Under this new law, 10% of our funding is held back, and each community college has to earn the funding back through the attainment of specific success points. And these success points include things like completion of developmental education, completion of gateway courses, completion of your first 15 hours, your first 30 hours, or transferring after 11 hours, and certainly completion of a certificate or a degree. Now, as you can imagine, this represented a whole new way of operating for Texas community colleges, who, like many others across the country, had been funded based upon the number of students who were enrolled at the college on the official date of record. All of these changes fueled the realization that TCC could not continue with business as usual, and that is when we made the decision to join Achieving the Dream. Next slide. To begin our work with Achieving the Dream, we use the original principles of committed leadership, use of evidence, broad engagement, systemic institutional improvement, and equity. Next slide. And what we've done is we've incorporated, next slide, we've incorporated those principles into the new institutional capacity framework, which allows us to assess the college's readiness to support systemic change and then determine where improvements or changes need to be made. Next slide. These are some of the examples of how we structured our work with the new framework. In the area of leadership and vision, our governing board wanted to make it clear to everyone that they supported the college's efforts to increase student success and completion. So they added student success as a standing agenda item for every board meeting. Every month, there's a presentation on what we are doing to increase student success and the measurable outcomes. To support strategy and planning, we developed our Vision 2015 strategic plan with goals that clearly aligned with our Achieving the Dream work. And early on, we knew that we didn't have the capacity to support our work with data and technology. When we joined Achieving the Dream, there were a total of 3 people in our institutional research department. And with this lack of resources, the campuses had begun to collect their own data, and as you can imagine, there were inconsistencies in the way the data was collected, analyzed, and interpreted. Today, we have 14 staff in institutional research, and we're focused not only on collecting, analyzing, and interpreting the data, but we're also focused on making sure we communicate the data effectively. To support engagement and communication, we created intentional ways for listening to and learning from our students, our faculty, and our staff. These included participating in surveys like the Survey of Entering Student Engagement, the Community College Survey of Student Engagement. We conducted focus groups, and we participated in the Community College Faculty Survey of Student Engagement as well. Next slide. The board also established a new policy that required all full-time faculty and staff to complete 24 hours of professional development. Our adjunct faculty are required to complete 8 hours. And our work with teaching and learning has continued to grow since the establishment of our Faculty Academy in 2010. That academy has now broadened to be the Teaching and Learning Academy, providing professional development for both faculty and staff. And we've established academic curriculum teams comprised of faculty from each discipline and each campus coming together to discuss pedagogy and make decisions about curriculum. The area of equity is a new area of focus for us. We have always been committed to helping all of our students achieve their goals, but there has not been an intentional focus on providing students with what they need in order to achieve at the same level as other students. At TCC, we hired a Director of Diversity and Inclusion to lead this work, and as a result, we now have a college-wide inclusion plan and a Diversity and Inclusion Council on each of our campuses. Next slide. This slide shows some of the student success strategies that we implemented, and in a moment I'll share data on 2 of those that are highlighted, specifically supplemental instruction and our graduation and outreach and completion efforts. Next slide. So after all of the work that we are doing at Tarrant, all of the changes that were taking place, I'm sure you want to know, are we moving the needle? Next slide. This slide shows our 1-year course completion rates, and as you can see, there has been a gradual increase, as well as our fall-to-fall retention rates. And I know 1 point, 2 points may not seem like a lot in some institutions, but when you are an institution that serves nearly 100,000 students a year, those are huge amounts. Next slide. This slide shows supplemental instruction, one of the programs I mentioned. We started SI in the spring of 2015, and this slide shows the number of students utilizing SI and the total number of visits. So as you can see, we began in spring of 2015, and there was a gradual continued increase in the number of students using it and the number of visits that they were making to the SI coordinator. Next slide. This slide shows the success of students who are taking advantage of SI versus those students who were not. So as you can see, it's about a 20-point difference between the success rates. Next slide. And this slide shows the total number of certificates and degrees awarded from 2011 to 2016. And a lot of this is due to the great work of our graduation outreach and completion program. We began doing degree audits and automatically awarding students their degrees and certificates once they satisfied the requirements. We also began identifying those students who were within 15 hours of completing a credential and making sure that they got specialized advising and coaching to complete. Next slide. So after all of that, what did we learn at Tarrant? We learned that while there are many important aspects to creating and sustaining a culture of institutional change, the most critical aspects are by far engagement and effective communication. We tried to engage everyone at the start of our work, and then we realized that the campuses had been functioning as separate colleges and had little interaction with each other or the district office. So we first had to spend some time developing trust and support for a one-college culture. We also learned the importance of understanding the college's capacity for change. How much change is too much? Should we do these things in phases? Can we allow some campuses to do things one way while allowing others to do things another way? And while it was important to have consistency in policies, processes, and procedures, we found that it was equally important to give the staff and the faculty the freedom to be innovative. So it was really important for us to find a balance. Next slide. We also learned that if you start your Achieving the Dream work with a hierarchy of model, you have to be prepared to modify that model as people become empowered and excited about the work. Natural leaders are going to emerge. You have to be willing to follow where the data will lead you, and you have to be willing to have those courageous conversations, such as explaining why things need to be done consistently, reassuring your faculty that you want academic rigor to remain intact and that you are not asking them to give away grades, and by all means listen to their concerns. And lastly, every institution is different, so you do have to be willing to discontinue a strategy if you find that it doesn't work for your institution. Next slide. And I'll end with a picture of some of our recent graduates. This slide is a reminder of why we do the work that we do and the importance of creating a culture that supports student success and completion. And now we'll turn the presentation over to Ashley.
Thanks, Joy, and thank you for sharing your work. It's great hearing how Tarrant used the framework to build capacity in each of the 7 areas. It sounds like it was very helpful for your team in organizing your work. For those of you seeking guidance in building your institution's capacity, we invite you to join the network. We are accepting applications for the 2017 cohort, and they can be found one of 2 ways. The first way is on our website at www.achievingthedream.org/join. You can also send me an email, and I will send you an application. The last day to submit an application is March 31st. Colleges accepted into the network are asked to put in an initial commitment of 3 years, and this chart details the services, supports, and activities colleges can expect to engage in or receive each year they're in the network. In their first year, for example, colleges will launch their work at our Kickoff Institute. This is where they'll meet their coaches, become familiarized with the framework, and begin to organize for success. We refer to the first 6 to 8 months in the network as the learning and discovery phase, because this is generally the time that colleges review and collect data about their student success efforts and familiarize themselves with their technology and data reporting systems. Colleges also receive up to 3 visits from their coaching team, as well as virtual assistants. They'll administer the ICAT and host forums to discuss their results. They'll also attend DREAM, our annual conference on student success. And towards the end of their first year, they'll take all that they've learned and develop an action plan, which will guide them through the next 2 years in the network. In their second and third years, colleges will receive two site visits from their coaching team and are expected to carry out the work outlined in their action plans. Then towards the end of the year, they'll be asked to prepare an annual reflection reporting on their work towards their goals outlined in the action plan. Colleges also receive access to the benefits mentioned below, such as exclusive access to in-network webinars, access to ATD Connect, that's our digital peer learning community, annual benchmarking reports from NSC, institutional development resources, specialized learning events, and more. Budgeting considerations. Self-funded institutions pay an annual participation fee of $75,000 for the first 3 years for a total initial commitment of $225,000. This fee covers the cost of the benefits and services outlined in the previous slides. And institutions should be prepared to pay their first year's participation fee by April 28, 2017. I mentioned DREAM. I mentioned DREAM earlier. DREAM is our annual convening on student success. It's the yearly meeting of Achieving the Dream colleges and is one of the largest gatherings of community colleges in the nation. The conference typically attracts more than 2,000 individuals and serves as a great introduction to the network. During DREAM, attendees can hear how leaders are tackling the challenges of increasing student success. Attendees also have the opportunity to learn about new research or best practices in the field. They can also connect with their peers to learn about the student success strategies they are implementing on their campuses. This year's event is scheduled to occur February 21st to the 24th in San Francisco. You do not need to be a network college to attend, so we hope that you'll join us. If you do decide to join us at DREAM, we'll be hosting a few special sessions and a reception for colleges that would like to learn more about the network. On Wednesday, we'll be offering a workshop on discovering the institutional capacity framework. We'll also be hosting the ATD Transform Showcase reception. Both these events are invitation only, so if you're registered for DREAM, please keep an eye out for your invitation. Our Birds of a Feather session and our ATD 101 Network Information Session occur on Thursday. And if you're at DREAM, we also encourage you to stop by our booth to say hello. And we hope to see you at DREAM. Another event that our colleges participate in that we also hope you'll keep on your radar is our Kickoff Institute. The Kickoff Institute is scheduled to occur June 13th to the 15th in Cleveland, Ohio. It's where all the colleges from the incoming cohort will come together for the first time to begin their discussions about their work and meet with their coaches. We also offer a preview experience for colleges not involved in the network but looking to engage in exploratory work around their institution's student success efforts. The preview experience is held in the same location and the same date as the institute. During the 2 days of the kickoff, colleges will meet with their coaching teams if they are participating in the cohort. They'll learn about the institutional capacity framework, organize for success, and engage in peer learning. You can learn more about Achieving a Dream by contacting me via email or phone or by visiting our website. You can also learn more about our work by watching our video, The ATD Impact. Thank you for joining us and for your interest in learning more about our work. Before we conclude this presentation, we'd like to open up the floor to the audience for questions. You can type your questions into the chat box located at the bottom panel on the right-hand side of your screen. So the first question is if it would be possible to get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, we will make the slide deck as well as the recording of this presentation available after the presentation.
Ashley, while we're waiting for questions, I wonder if Joy would just say a word or two about, if she remembers back, whether there were people on campus that were kind of concerned about getting involved in Achieving the Dream, if there were some, some hesitancies, and if so, how they overcame them. If there still are some folks that wonder if there's too many initiatives going on. Joy, I wonder if you could, those are things we hear often from other colleges. I wonder if you want to just comment or two on that.
Sure, I'm happy to. We did hear a number of those things, Carol, when we joined Achieving the Dream. Because I had experience with Achieving the Dream at another institution, I kind of had a better understanding of the movement and of some of the questions that we would have. We had to reassure a lot of folks, but we did let them know that we were going to be making changes as an institution. And this is where the importance of engagement and communication are really critical up front, to allay those fears that you're going to totally change the institution, you're going to ask me to give away grades, those kinds of things. One of the things that we really did is we created opportunities for people to lead from wherever they were at the institution, to come up with those great ideas. And then we took faculty and staff to the Dream Institute on several occasions. And you know what I always heard when they came back was, well, we're already doing that. They felt better about where they were because we were already beginning to address the kinds of questions and issues that others were just perhaps beginning to address. But also they felt good about the fact that we were doing some of the things and that they would be seen perhaps as a resource to others. And so I think that helped us a great deal, is to get people on board by allowing them to really learn more about Achieving the Dream in an atmosphere where we're not saying you have to, get on board with everything, but really explore it for yourself. And I think that's probably was the most important thing, is to take the time. That would be my best advice to any institution coming in. Take the time to engage your campus, your college community, and have an effective course of communication.
I had another question for Lori. I don't know if we're getting any written in or not, Ashley, but just another thing that we hear a lot, some questions in the field about if our college is fortunate enough to be in one of the national initiatives that is working on pathways reform or some other major thing, maybe IPASS, what's the added value of also being in Achieving the Dream? Does it make sense to try to do both things at once, or should we be thinking of these as linear activities? Do you want to comment on that, Lori?
Sure, and I touched that some when I was talking about the capacity framework, but what we're finding is that these essential conditions, these 7 capacities, really must be in place before colleges can embark on that large-scale change work, like the pathways, like advising redesign, developmental education reform. So they're definitely, related. They all require redesign and a holistic approach and broad engagement, but I think our framework broadens it and makes it more cohesive, and you can anchor that work to it. So we're seeing, many of our high-performing colleges that are in pathways really leveraging this capacity building strategically to support and align those efforts and bring cohesion to the work.
So it looks like we did have a few other questions come in. The first question is, educational equity is one of ATD's focus areas. Has ATD worked with colleges solely on equity work, such as an equity project of the sort?
So equity is a core value. Achieving the Dream has an equity statement. We have an equity simulation called the Finish Line Game that we use with our colleges, and that's available for use on campus. We are currently updating that based on student personas and challenges that resonate with our network, so that we have a broad list of student scenarios and challenges to pull from. And then many of our colleges are engaging in like a World Cafe or some type of experience to address the equity issues and how they can address those student challenges. So that's one way we do it. We also learn resources from our other colleges, books that they've used for all college reads, consulting or training that they might need based on whether their population is largely low income or whether there's it's a minority male initiative or whatever resonates for them that's most relevant for their campus. We work with them and also on listening to your student voices. Like Dr. Joy mentioned the CESI survey. So taking a deeper dive and actually doing focus groups with your students and hearing what some of those challenges are, and with diverse groups of your students, not just the students that are in Phi Theta Kappa or in the Student Government Association, but really a diverse mix of your students, so you're hearing the challenges that they're having. So we are building an equity toolkit and resources for each of those capacity areas to go deeper, but we do also have the assessment portion of the ICAT that specifically addresses equity. That'll help you narrow in on areas that you might need to build capacity in at your institution.
And then the next question is there financial support towards the $75,000 fee? And I can answer that. Several of our colleges, they come on with the support of a local foundation, and that is sometimes how they fund their participation in the network.
This is Carol. There's a couple of other things that can happen too. I think many colleges are located in parts of the country where they don't have a foundation that is actively supporting higher education, so that can be a problem. But usually institutions are able to look across their budgets and find pockets of money. Sometimes maybe there's a federal grant that they may be able to tap into. California colleges have equity grants from the state that they've been able to tap into. I think what we usually do is try to advise colleges to take a hard look at your budget. It's always hard to find the money. I know that's, you know, there's a lot of things you want to do with that money. But if you can express the return on investment in such a way that you can persuade decision makers that this is a good investment, usually there's resources to find. And the way to do that, one of our college presidents sat down and figured out how many students, extra students, would need to be retained from semester to semester to equal that amount of money that they were paying for the Achieving the Dream services. And they found that the number was alarmingly low. They needed, and I apologize for not remembering the number off the top of my head, but it was less than 100 students that needed to be retained in terms of the FTE, the support they would get from the state and other places. So sometimes just sitting down and doing a simple calculation of if we had 100 more students retained from semester to semester, what would that mean in terms of added revenue to the college? Does that equal the amount of money that's going out? I think you'd find in most cases you can more than match the expense. And the other thing we like to say is that that money is for direct services. It's not for, you know, virtually everything that is in that $75,000 is covering things like having your coaches come. You don't have to pay to have them come work with you. It's covering your participation in the various learning events. So it's sometimes it's something you can find in your professional development budget.
We also work with colleges who might be in a geographic region and could gain efficiencies by doing some paired college models where you share your coaching team, or like a consortium model. So you know, the ideal is if you can join as an individual institution, but we do offer different membership or participation models based on your geography and need, if we can leverage efficiencies that way to help make it at a more affordable price point.
Great. Thanks, Lori. There's a few other questions. Did any of the schools get assistance with the National Student Clearinghouse, and if so, can you provide an example of what you got, of what they got help with?
So sure, each state has a regional National Student Clearinghouse representative, and they can help you navigate your data and making sure that you're fully participating in Student Tracker, Enrollment Verify, and Degree Verify to really be able to best leverage the data that we can give back to you, as well as disaggregating data. So the Student Clearinghouse has 4 optional data elements that we ask our colleges to populate, and that's gender, ethnicity, Pell status, which is a yes-no flag, and a DevEd coursework flag, which is a yes-no, so that we can disaggregate on those elements. So we have webinars, and we have a FAQ and a navigation guide for you. We worked with the vendors like Illusion to make sure that their NSC extract includes those optional elements to make it easier for colleges to participate. And then we offer support. We provide you a customized student success report based on your data, and then we also have had many colleges requesting that we provide the Excel file back to them so that they can link their NSC data to other institutional data that they have in gainful employment, what have you. So we support colleges in doing that as well. And we can do like pilot runs with your data, and if it doesn't look right, you know, colleges have some ability to flag who they think is a degree-seeking student and some of those things. So we can work with you to make sure that the cohort is as relevant as possible for your student population, so that that data that's coming back to you is meaningful. So we have support, and then you also have a regional rep that will help you, as well as your technology vendor who we've looped in.
And the next question is, what is the role of non-instructional employees who do not have direct contact with students?
So in the student success agenda, we say, like Joy said when she was talking about the Tarrant College experience, that natural leaders will emerge, and whether if you're in the classroom, your job is to ensure that students are getting the best instruction they can. If your job is outside of the classroom, your job is to ensure students arrive in class in the best condition to learn. Whether you work in the cafeteria, whether you're a security guard, you're fostering that student-focused culture to remove barriers and foster student success. So everybody might not be a manager by project title, but everybody can be a student success leader by influencing what's in their sphere of control to improve that student experience and feedback information to others and keep that communication open. And so through the student success, you know, there's the core team and their data team, but then there's priority teams. Some colleges are building capacity teams and are engaging a broad group of the college community in those conversations to learn from each other. So, and I'll let Joy feel free to jump in and add based on your experiences at Tarrant.
I think you're absolutely right, Lori. Everyone has a role to play, and I think that once the institutional capacity assessment was revealed and was available to us, I think everybody was able to see themselves in that work. because everything that we do some way ties to student success. So that's something that we've really worked hard to help everyone to be able to see what they can do. You know, we tied that to the 4 disciplines of execution by Covey. We really looked at what can you do to impact student success within your sphere of influence, whether you are, you know, someone in the registrar's office, or you're someone who is at the information desk, or you're someone on answering the telephone in a call center. Whatever your role is, you can have an impact on the lives of our students, even if you are just directing students across campus. And so that's really to the level that you've got to get to in terms of engaging everyone at the college.
And another question is, as part of ATD, are all schools required to take the capacity tool?
New colleges, we launched it in September of 2016. So far, over 60 colleges have taken it, and over 6,000 faculty and staff. So, but new colleges that, the colleges that joined in 2016 take it as part of their, yeah, it's a requirement for colleges starting in 2016 on beyond, but we're finding huge demand from it, not only for colleges on our network, but for colleges outside of our network as a way to, like, again, test readiness for doing pathways and dev ed redesign, and just to take a holistic, candid look at yourself across all of these essential elements to start that conversation. Colleges have taken it different ways. At Tarrant, they took it at the district level, and then they took it at each of their 6 campuses, and then they had an all-campus view, each campus view, and a district view. Some colleges chose to focus on specific areas initially within the capacity and not take all 7. But most colleges are coming back and saying that they wish they had done it broadly across the institution with as many people as possible, because it really helped to take that candid assessment and spark the dialogue when they had the World Cafe engagement activity to talk about and move into action planning based on those insights. So for colleges starting in 2017, yes, and there is no additional fee for that, and it's online, and we produce the results for you, and your coaches facilitate the World Cafe for you and lead you into, again, translating those insights into meaningful actions based on your capacity needs.
Okay, so I think that's the end of the questions. This concludes the webinar. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for joining us. As Ashley mentioned earlier, we will be sure to send out the slide deck and the recording to all registrants, and we would happy to answer any questions. We hope to see you at DREAM and at some of those targeted sessions for prospective colleges, and thank you again. And thank you to Dr. Joy Gates-Black and Carol Lincoln and Ashley for serving on the panel today.
Thank you.